If you've been following the channel over the last while, you'll obviously know that I like to cover a lot of racing games in the videos, and there's a reason behind that. It's because I'm a massive fan of cars and I love racing games, and the racing genre is one of my favourites, even going back way back into my younger years. And even on the PlayStation, with games like Formula 1, Wipeout, Gran Turismo, Colin McRae Rally, you name it, the PlayStation had it in abundance, and there really was something for everybody. But the PlayStation was leaps and worlds apart, especially in its early years. When we look at games like the original Formula 1, then moving all the way onto the likes of games like the NASCAR series, you had Gran Turismo, like I said, Colin McRae. It was an evolution the whole time. But one area that the PlayStation is heavily known for is its sea of Formula 1 style racers. You also had Indy 500 games, you had anything between simulation affairs to arcade experiences. The list was pretty much endless, and there really was something there that would appeal to all players. Now I will admit, not all of them were considered great, but they definitely have distinctive characteristics that will appeal to a select few players. And like I said, for me it's the perfect opportunity to go back and to revisit a lot of these games, or games I never got to play back in the day. Now make of it what you will, some games are better than others, but you can be the judge of that. But regardless, one of the games we're looking at here is simply known as Kart World Series. It was released back in 1997 on the PlayStation, and is an arcade slash simulation racer that is licensed by a lot of individual teams and professional drivers of that time period. While it does have arcade elements, the game does focus heavily more on simulation aesthetics, and in all respects to it, is definitely not as easy to pick up and play compared to other racers on the system in and around that category, and will take some time and effort to get familiar with the controls and the dynamics of the handling physics, because every change that you make or every choice that you interact with does have a direct impact on the environment and how the race will play out. So with the simulation elements, you do have access to change different dynamics regarding the tyre settings from hard, soft, medium, compounds. You can also change the suspension settings, even the handling physics as well. And compared to other racers of this type, where often if you would try to speed around the track too much, around corners, there's a very good chance that you'll spin off, or if you hit a blade of grass, you'll go flying into a barrier, and vice versa. This game doesn't do that as much to a certain degree, but I find, even from my own time spent in playing it now, it probably is down to the choices that I made regarding the handling mechanics, but I found that you have to really take your time and be very aware of your surroundings and knowing when to brake in order to get the best line going around corners, because if you leave it too late, the handling physics, unlike other racing games, doesn't allow you to turn as fluently. So in order to go around a tighter corner like a hairpin or a sharp turn, you really have to slow down the car to an almost a crawl in order to get round the corner efficiently, because if you try to take the corners at speed in this game, forget about it, you will go into the barrier. Unlike other games where you would have to press a button to reverse, you would actually, in this game, you have to hit one of the shoulder buttons to manually put the gear into reverse and then reverse the car, which is a little bit more clunky and fiddly and will eat up a lot of your time if you're not sure of what you're doing, and then you have to put the car back in gear again in order to take off. So if you're not familiar with manual settings, it can definitely leave a better taste in your mouth, let's just put it that way, and will frustrate you. I found when I first started playing it, trying to figure things out, and you found yourself getting annoyed a little bit at first, but then when you got familiar with it, it wasn't too bad. If anything, you can alleviate that stress by becoming more familiar with the handling physics and the layouts of the tracks, because if you, like I said, if you know when to brake and you know when to corner, you will avoid crashing into barriers. It's very simple when you think about it, and that's where the simulation aspects really come into play, as it definitely boils down to your own sense of play style. You can be rewarded for better driving, but you will be crucified for erratic or just negligent driving. But in saying that, it's still a tough game to master, because the AI is very heavily balanced and they're usually so far ahead of you, so even when you do manage to gain momentum, it takes a long time. Like even if you're doing a short race, which can be anywhere between 3 and 5 laps, the chances of you winning is very, very slim, especially if you're starting from the back. You will need to go through the qualifying sessions to try and gain a better time to move up the positions, and you also have to contend with not making a mistake or crashing into another racer to have a chance of winning. It's very realistic in that sense. For a PS1 game, it does that quite well. But if you're starting from the back of the pack, forget about it, especially on a shorter race. You'd need to have to do a long endurance race, anything over 10 or 20 laps to have any chance of winning. But even at that, there's so many other factors in play, because I always find with a lot of these games, the longer you play and the more laps you play, your attention span starts to decline rapidly, and you will will make mistakes, you will crash into barriers, you will go off the tracks, and it usually always happens on the last bloody lap when you're about to cross the finish line, and then you do something stupid, or you make a wrong judgment call, or you press the wrong button, or something silly happens and you're crucified from it. And this game will crucify you for those mistakes. But in saying that, right, graphically it's not too bad. It's nowhere near as well polished compared to other games. If you look at the likes of the Formula 1 games from Psygnosis and later entries on the console, it really doesn't match up to them in terms of its visual standards or quality. But it is a good solid racer, especially if you're looking for something a little bit more on the realistic side. It definitely has a lot of those attributes.
Okay, we're going green. Go, go, go!
In saying that, the game was received with mixed reviews with regards to magazines and so forth, with people liking the realistic elements to it, but they did find the game to be a bit too difficult and not as user friendly in the beginning in order for it to be fun. But like I said, it's one of those games, it's not a pick up and play game that you can play for 5 minutes and put it down and have a blast with it. It's not going to work like that at all. This is one of those games that you really have to be methodical in your approach and understanding of how the game actually works, and you do need to dedicate time to this in order to get familiar with it. But like I said, once you do, it is a good solid experience. Not the best racer on the system, I will admit, but there's definitely enough here that will appeal to purists of simulation style racing. Plus you also have the added bonus of being able to play through different modes with time trial practices and even a 2-player split screen mode, or you can also use the PlayStation Link cable if you had access to that with 2 additional TV screens so that you could play up to 4 players as well. So it does give you that element, but not everybody has access to that, and especially these days it's just more of a faff to set up more than anything else. But if it's something you're interested in, then go for it. But aside from that, you do have access to the likes of real life drivers and even limited and licensed brands from Honda and Ford, and you even have some big names, some of them of which would have used to have raced back in the likes of the Formula 1 era with the likes of Mark Blundell, among a few others that would have been familiar. So if you're familiar with Formula 1 games and the whole concept around them, you'll get into this fairly handy. There's enough modes, there's enough features in the game that will definitely appeal to purists out there, and if you're looking for a good solid racer, this will definitely fit that category. But regardless, I would love to know your thoughts on Kart World Series for the PlayStation, and what did you think of it overall back in the day? Were you a fan of this, or did you prefer other types of racers in the same category on the PlayStation? So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more videos around other types of kart racers or Formula 1 style games that were released on the PlayStation, and many of which I have covered already on the channel, then you can check out the playlist on screen to see more of those games in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.